half, I want to address what many people have previously pegged as Fight Night's weakest component, the single-player campaign. What are you guys doing to improve the campaigner campaigns in Champion?
Well, I mean, certainly one of the big things that we've done is there's really two campaigns, or one campaign and one traditional, sports simulation career mode. So, Fight Night Round 4, we introduced Legacy Mode, which is, your traditional EA Sports career mode. That's still there, and we've added some new features and improvements to that. But we've also added Champion Mode, which is the cinematic sort of movie mode, campaign mode that centers around a fictional character we created, Andre Bishop, and essentially, the trials and tribulations in his struggle to go from amateur middleweight prospect to champion of the world. So that's basically the big things. We added some stuff to Legacy Mode for the career mode sim fans, and we did Champion Mode for everybody.
So who do you have writing the Champion Mode? Because I hear that's going to be a pretty cinematic, narrative-based experience.
Yeah, the writer for Champion Mode, we actually worked with a guy named Will Rokos, who is the screenplay writer, Academy Award nominated writer for Monsters Ball, and numerous other projects between here and then. But we interviewed a lot of people, and actually Will had he has amateur boxing experience, and he was a big fan of the sport, and he had a lot of great stories just from his past, just knowing some professional boxers and club fighters. So when we were interviewing people and talking to people on the phone, like, we really hit it off with him. He was really enthusiastic about the project, but we certainly didn't say, hey, let's do a campaign mode and we'll write it ourselves. But we went out and got somebody that had the chops, and he knocked it out of the park.
Awesome. So I hear that there will be like location-based training, like specifically tailored to each city.
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we introduced a variety of training locations in Legacy Mode. So there's gyms in Big Bear, California, which is a place a lot of boxers go in real life. Detroit, Motor City, home of Tommy the Hitman Hearns. Philadelphia, obviously home of some of the toughest boxers in history. And then places like Germany, Tokyo, Puerto Rico, Mexico. You can take your Legacy Mode fighter to all these places, and each of them will have different benefits to your boxer's training regime. So, take for example a place like Philadelphia, which is known for guys like Bernard Hopkins and Marvin Hagler, guys that are tough as nails. If you go there, you're going to see a bigger increase to your fighter's toughness and ability to sort of withstand a punch, because he's going to be partaking in some of the legendary Philadelphia gym wars. If you go to Big Bear, California, that's training at elevation. That's where a lot of fighters go to make sure that their cardio is up to par. Same thing in our game. You go to Big Bear, you're going to see big payoffs to your cardio and endurance. And so basically that whole mechanic plays out everywhere else in the world. Every location has a unique benefit that'll help your fighter focus on a specific level or a specific area of his athleticism or skill.
So again, you guys have tailored the controls to this newest release. Can you tell me a little bit more about full spectrum punch control and reflexive blocking?
Sure. Full spectrum punch control is I guess the product of, well, years now of sort of real-time or real-world focus group testing on total punch control, and us just going back to the drawing board a little bit. I worked on Fight Night 2004, which was the first game that actually had total punch control, and was one of the people that drew up the designs for the original arcing punches. And it was a great design. It's still a solid design. It's a great design on paper, but we've noticed over the years, from the number of controllers we have with all the rubber worn off the right stick, the calluses on people's thumbs, and as well as telemetry data that we get from the game, that there was a discrepancy because of just the physiology of the human hand and the configuration. Right-handed punches were a lot harder to throw than left-handed punches. So we decided to get rid of all the articulated gestures to throw punches. Right now, it's just flick the stick to the left or the right at different angles to throw different punches. If you're up around 12 o'clock, it's going to be straight punches, jabs. If you're to the side, it's going to be hooks or overhands. If you're down in the bottom half, it's going to be uppercuts or hooker cuts, left and right. Use the body punch modifier to go to the body, heavy punch modifier to add a little steam to your punches. But Compared to fight nights previous, there's a much larger punch animation variety available to every fighter in the game, and they're a lot easier to throw, which is basically just good for everybody. Reflexive blocking is another little change we did. As the speed of the game increased, just from how fast the punches themselves are, how fast the back and forth game is, how fast the counter game is, we realized that, you know, putting the onus on the user to react to every single punch coming in their way. You know, if Manny Pacquiao is standing in your face, throwing a flurry of punches at all different targets, not everybody in the world has the ability to react to that. So reflexive blocking system, we said it's a one button blocking system. Either pull the button to try and time your block to a punch coming in and you're going to pick it off 100%, or you can just hold the block down and you're cover up. And then depending on your boxer's ratings, current stamina level, and what combo your opponent's throwing, some of those punches are going to get through and some of them aren't. It's basically just like kind of turtling up in a real fight. You're not going to stop everything, but you might stop most things depending on how good you are. What that allows you to do, though, is with the controller, you can be holding down the block button and still throw punches. So it lets you hold down block and throw punches and then go right back to blocking. That's something you never able to do before in Fight Night, was sort of hold down a defensive control and then go straight into offense without having to sort of coordinate multiple finger inputs at the same time. So again, it makes things a little bit more accessible right up front, but there's still, you know, some deep gameplay and strategy involved. Do you want to try and pick off, do you want to try and count on your reflexes to pick off Mike Tyson's left hook coming at your head? Or are you just going to turtle up and hope that your boxer has strong enough reflexes and isn't tired right now and he's going to stop it? So while it's, like I said, simple in the front end, there's still a lot of decisions to be made and there's a lot of strategy behind the scenes.
Awesome. So the Fight Night franchise has always been pretty gorgeous, to say the least, especially in this new generation of consoles. I guess current generation of consoles. Fight Night Round 3 had some stunning character models and lighting. Fight Night Round 4 had some really incredible physics tied to the animation. What new tech are you packing under the hood for Champion?
I get this question a lot, and I'm a producer, not a technical artist, not even a creative artist. And here's what I can say is that technically speaking, I just know they've done something, and they do it every year. You know, I mean, I know Round 3 was a game when we were making Round 4. We got asked all the time, "How are you gonna make it look better in Round 3?" And I didn't really know, but they did it, and I was blown away. And then Round 4, we just made that. You know, it was just a year and a half ago, and it was the same questions. Well, how are we gonna make it look better than this? And like, I don't know, but Jenny Freeman, the art director, the entire art team, you know, they sit down and they solve these problems. It's essentially, you know, when you give people the tools and the opportunity to do great work, they end up doing it. And I'm consistently blown away. Every game I ever work on that's an iterative sports title, I was like, well, I guess we're not gonna make it look better than this next year, but we do. And Fight Night's certainly a game that really takes that to extremes, because the artists that work on it really relish the opportunity to focus on just two characters, one environment, and just knock it out of the park. Technically speaking, I know that they've changed, you know, a lot of the lighting and the shaders. You know, we've addressed a lot of issues with the boxer geometry and the animation rig, so that essentially their physiology looks a little bit better. There's less things sort of out of place. But you know, the long and the short it is, if you look at Round 4 and then look at Champion, I mean, I'm like, wow, I feel kind of bad about making Round 4 now, which is ridiculous. But that's how good of a job those guys do every year. So props to them.
Awesome. I've got a couple of questions from the PSU community from user Smiggy. Why is Fight Night Champion running at 30 FPS when other Fight Night releases ran at 60?
Well, that's a kind of a tricky question. So there's multiple things there. Our physics simulation runs at 120 hertz, which is 120 frames per second. The game sim, in terms of calculating stamina loss, health regeneration, all that sort of stuff, inputs, runs at 60 frames per second. But the rendering thread runs at 30. So it's you know, it's multi-threaded. The reason why we did that is that we wanted to get motion blur in the game, because visually looking at a game at 30 with motion blur as opposed to 60 without, that's how you get to the visual quality that we're at. And if you compare round 4 to Champion, round 4 has a rather surreal and almost plasticky look to it now in comparison. It's almost too high def for its own good to a certain extent. And obviously I hate to cast aspersions of a game that I only made 18 months ago, but essentially we really wanted to get motion blur in there, because when you watch a fight in real life, you watch Manny Pacquiao throw a flurry of punches, your eyes blur the scene. You don't see in that, in that resolution. So it basically was a decision that we knew we could keep the things under the hood, the physics and the game simulation, running at high RPMs, if you will. But to get motion blur in there and get that really authentic, realistic look of a boxing match, we had to use motion blur on 30. Down the road, as we optimize and improve performance, I think hopefully we'll do 60 with motion blur. But that was just a technical challenge that was insurpassable at the moment.
From user PS3 Freak 18, what caused the team to aim for a mature rating in this installment? And I would add, did you intend to did you just make the game you wanted to make and get the label slapped on by the ESRB?
Well, I mean, certainly we had to clear the potential rating with EA. Yeah. No other sports game's ever been mature before, but essentially we decided we wanted to do the campaign mode, champion mode, and we decided on the themes that we wanted to touch on the story and essentially the tone of the story that we wanted to deliver. We had a first pass of the script and we looked at it and said, well, this is going to be mature. There's no way about that. So essentially we can either cut this and strip it and water it down, or we can try and get this cleared. And the bosses at EA Sports looked at the script and they were bought into the idea of what we were doing in champion mode, and they said, yeah, sure, go ahead, be mature. And we said, all right. The benefit to that is that it does allow us to have much more creative freedom in the story, but as well allows us to take a little bit of the reins off in terms of showing physical damage in the fight itself. So you'll see a bit more blood, a bit more swelling, and a bit more mess around the ring. That looks a lot more like a real fight, because having to be teen in the past always kind of held it back a little bit. But and so it wasn't necessarily that we're like, yeah, we want to just really want to make a mature game. We wanted to make a story that was going to be compelling, and it turned out to be mature, and then the rest is history.
Awesome. Last user question from Bit by Death. Will Get in the Ring first person mode from round 3 make a comeback in Fight Night Champion? And also, any word on move support? Those two would be pretty awesome together.
So what's different about Champion and round 4 from round 3? Champion with in round 4 with the physics system, they were the first 2 games that let the boxers get that close. Whereas in Fight Night round 3 and round 2, that was a game. It was a game that was always fought at this distance. So the first person's perspective worked pretty well there, because your head was never behind my head, kind of thing, right? So that's just from a first person perspective. With what we do in champion mode, in terms of letting the boxers get in close, bang around on the inside, it gets really tricky if you're going to say, like, how are you going to look at Bernard Hopkins over there? So that's a tricky one. We don't have plans to introduce the Get in the Ring mode at this time, via DLC or with Champion. But certainly the idea of a first-person, motion-controlled experience is something that we get asked all the time. But and this is my answer always, is that it's not a good idea to just take a good console controller game and slap it on motion control. You want to design a motion control game from the ground up to work with motion controls and to be a good motion gaming experience. If we just said, hey, there's Fight Night, I hope you feel good standing up for 2 minutes at a time, throwing 100 punches in the air, because maybe you've boxed before, that's risky. Whereas, taking the user around, through a more streamlined, and something that basically breadcrumbs the user into boxing, as opposed to just saying, I hope you can beat Mike Tyson, is the approach we would have to take, as opposed to just port something into motion controls and hope you guys buy it because they're new. It's definitely make a good motion control game conceptually, and then produce it. That's the way to go. And if we're going to do it, that's how we would have to approach it, for sure.
Awesome. Any last comments before we wrap up?
The only thing that's important is Fight Night Champion is coming to PlayStation 3 March 1st, 2011. You can check the demo out now already. But yeah, be sure to check it out in stores March 1st, 2011.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you, man.